A glass of red wine hits a man's face. Not an accident. Deliberate. In front of 50 people. The waiter stands there, Merlot dripping down his white shirt, his dignity shattered in a room full of Hollywood's elite. The man who threw it? One of the most powerful producers in the industry. The man sitting across the table? Eugene Allen Hackman. What Eugene did in the next 60 seconds cost him a 3-picture deal worth $12 million. But here's what nobody expected. 20 years later, that waiter would stand in front of his own restaurant, and the first person he invited to the grand opening? Eugene Allen Hackman. Stay with me. This story will change how you see power forever. Le Château, Beverly Hills, March 1985. If you wanted to make a deal in Hollywood, this was the place. White tablecloths, crystal chandeliers. A wine list thicker than most screenplays. The average dinner bill was more than most Americans made in a month. Every night, the room was filled with studio executives, A-list actors, directors whose names you'd recognize instantly. The tables were spaced far apart for privacy, but everyone watched everyone. That was the game. Eugene Allen Hackman hated this place. He hated the pretension. He hated the politics. He hated watching people perform for each other instead of just eating dinner. But tonight, he had no choice. Richard Brennan had requested this meeting. Brennan was the head of Pacific Pictures, one of the biggest studios in Hollywood. He had a 3-picture deal on the table. $12 million. The kind of money that could set Eugene up for life. Eugene's agent had begged him to take the meeting. Just have dinner with him, smile, nod, sign the contract. That's all you have to do. So Eugene put on a jacket, drove to Beverly Hills, and walked into Le Château. He had no idea that in 2 hours he would walk out without the deal, without the money, and without any regret. Richard Brennan was already seated when Eugene arrived. Mid-50s, silver hair, tan that looked painted on. He wore a suit that cost more than most cars, a Rolex that caught the light every time he moved his wrist. He smiled when he saw Eugene, the smile of a man who was used to getting what he wanted. "Eugene, so glad you could make it. Sit, sit." Eugene sat. "I've ordered us a bottle of the '78 Margot. You'll love it. $600 a bottle, but worth every penny." Eugene didn't care about wine. He didn't care about bottles that cost $600. He cared about the work. "Let's talk about the films, Richard. Always straight to business. I love that about you." Brennan laughed. Fine. 3 pictures. $12 million. You have creative approval on directors. We're even willing to negotiate on—" He stopped mid-sentence. His eyes had moved to something behind Eugene. "Excuse me, waiter." Eugene turned. A young man was approaching their table, mid-20s, dark hair, nervous smile. His name tag read, Miguel. "Yes, sir. How can I help you?" Brennan held up his wine glass. "This is not the temperature I requested. I specifically asked for this to be served at 62 degrees. This is at least 65. Miguel's face tightened. "I apologize, sir. I'll bring you a fresh glass immediately. You'll bring me a fresh bottle, and you'll comp it. Understood?" "Sir, I'm not authorized to—" "Then get someone who is." Miguel nodded quickly. "Of course, sir. Right away." He hurried off toward the kitchen. Eugene watched him go. Then he looked at Brennan. "The wine was fine." Brennan shrugged. "It's not about the wine, Eugene. It's about standards. These people need to learn." "These people?" "Service workers. They get lazy if you don't keep them sharp." Eugene felt something cold settle in his stomach, but he said nothing. Not yet. Miguel returned 5 minutes later with a fresh bottle. His hands were shaking slightly as he poured. "Again, sir, I apologize for—" "Just pour it, and try not to spill." Miguel poured. Carefully. Perfectly. Brennan took a sip. made a face. Better, but barely. He waved his hand dismissively. Go. Miguel retreated. Eugene watched him walk away, watched how his shoulders were hunched, how he kept his eyes on the floor. Eugene knew that walk. He had walked that way himself once, when he was working as a waiter in New York, 30 years ago, when customers treated him like he was invisible. The dinner continued. Brennan talked about the 3 pictures, about budgets and schedules and marketing plans, about all the money Eugene would make. Eugene nodded. He said the right things, but he kept watching Miguel. He watched how the young man moved through the restaurant, how he smiled at every customer even when they didn't smile back, how he checked and double-checked every order. A professional, a good one. Then it happened. Brennan had ordered a steak, medium rare. When it arrived, he cut into it, looked at the color, and his face twisted with disgust. This is medium. I ordered medium rare. Miguel stepped forward. Sir, I can have the kitchen. The kitchen had their chance. Brennan picked up his wine glass, the full glass, and he threw it, not at the wall, not at the floor, at Miguel's face. The red wine exploded across Miguel's white shirt. It splashed into his eyes, his hair, dripped down his chin. The glass clattered to the floor but didn't break. The restaurant went silent. 50 people frozen, forks halfway to mouths, conversations dead, mid-sentence. Miguel stood there, wine dripping, shaking. Now, Brennan said calmly, go get me a proper steak and clean yourself up. You're embarrassing the restaurant. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. And then Eugene Allen Hackman stood up. His chair scraped against the marble floor. The sound cut through the silence like a knife. Brennan looked up at him, confused. Eugene, where are you going? We're in the middle of... Eugene didn't answer. He walked past Brennan, straight to where Miguel was standing. The young man looked terrified. Probably thought he was about to be yelled at again. Instead, Eugene reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out his wallet. He took out every bill inside. $500, maybe more. He pressed the money into Miguel's hand. This isn't your fault, Eugene said quietly. None of this is your fault. Miguel stared at the money, then at Eugene. His eyes were wet, but he wasn't crying. He was too shocked to cry. Sir, I can't. You can, and you will. Eugene turned back toward the table, toward Brennan, who was sitting there with a look of utter confusion on his face. Eugene, what are you doing? Sit down. We have business to discuss. Eugene walked to the table, but he didn't sit. He looked down at Richard Brennan, at his expensive suit, his painted tan, his Rolex that caught the light. I grew up with nothing, Richard. My father left when I was 13. My mother worked 3 jobs just to keep us fed. I've been a truck driver, a furniture mover, a waiter. I've been the guy standing there with wine on his face because someone with money decided I didn't matter. Brennan shifted in his seat. Eugene, this is ridiculous. It's just a waiter. I'll leave him a big tip. Let's move on. It's not just a waiter. His name is Miguel, and he's a human being, something you seem to have forgotten. You're making a scene. No. You made a scene when you threw wine in a man's face because your steak wasn't pink enough. Eugene straightened his jacket. The deal is off. Brennan's face went red. Excuse me. The 3 pictures, the 12 million. It's off. I don't work with people who treat others like they're disposable. You're throwing away $12 million for a waiter. Eugene looked at him, really looked at him. I'm throwing away $12 million because I don't want to become you. He turned and walked toward the door. Behind him, he heard Brennan's voice rising, threatening, promising that Eugene would never work in this town again, that he would make sure every studio knew what happened. Eugene didn't look back. He pushed through the doors of Le Château and stepped out into the cool March night. He was $12 million poorer, and he had never felt richer in his life. The story spread through Hollywood like wildfire. By the next morning, everyone knew. Eugene Allen Hackman had walked out on Richard Brennan. Over a waiter, over a glass of wine. Some people thought Eugene was crazy. Brennan was powerful. He had connections everywhere. He could make life very difficult for anyone who crossed him. But something unexpected happened. Other actors started talking, directors, writers. They all had Brennan stories. Stories about humiliation, about abuse, about being treated like garbage. Within a year, Pacific Pictures was in trouble. Talent wouldn't sign with them. Directors turned down meetings. The word was out. Brennan was toxic. 3 years later, Richard Brennan was forced out of his own studio. He never produced another film. The last anyone heard, he was living in Palm Springs, alone, still telling anyone who would listen that Eugene Allen Hackman had ruined his career. Eugene never corrected him. He didn't need to, but this story has one more chapter, the most important one. 20 years later, 2005, Los Angeles. A new restaurant opened in Santa Monica. Small, elegant, nothing flashy. The kind of place where the food spoke for itself. It was called Miguel's. The owner was a 45-year-old man who had spent 2 decades working his way up from waiter to sous chef to head chef to restaurateur. A man who had never forgotten a single moment of his journey. On opening night, the restaurant was packed. Food critics, local celebrities, friends and family. But there was one empty table, the best table in the house. Reserved. At 8 o'clock, the door opened. Eugene Allen Hackman walked in. He was 75 years old now. His hair was white. He walked a little slower than he used to, but his eyes were the same, sharp, kind, missing nothing. Miguel was waiting for him. They stood there for a moment. 2 men separated by 20 years and a glass of wine. Then Miguel embraced him. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything." Eugene hugged him back. "You did this yourself, Miguel. All I did was see you. That was enough. That night you were the only one who saw me." They sat down. They ate. They talked about the years that had passed, about Eugene's retirement to Santa Fe, about Miguel's long journey from waiter to owner. At the end of the meal, Miguel refused to let Eugene pay. "Your money is no good here, Mr. Hackman. Not tonight. Not ever." Eugene smiled. "At least let me leave a tip." "You already did. 20 years ago." The story of Le Château is not about a glass of wine. It's not about a steak that was too pink. It's not even about $12 million. It's about what happens when someone with power sees someone without it, really sees them, and decides that their dignity matters more than any deal. Eugene Allen Hackman didn't save Miguel that night. Miguel saved himself through years of hard work and determination. But Eugene gave him something that money can't buy. He gave him proof that not everyone with power is cruel, that some people still remember where they came from, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply stand up and say, "This is wrong, and I won't be part of it." They say if you walk through the quiet streets of Santa Fe today, past the adobe houses and the art galleries, you might see an old man walking alone. No entourage, no cameras, no fanfare. Just a man who spent 50 years pretending to be other people, and then spent the rest of his life finally being himself. Eugene Allen Hackman never played the Hollywood game. He never smiled for the cameras when he didn't mean it. He never pretended to like people he didn't respect. And in an industry built on fakery, his authenticity was the rarest thing of all. Is there a moment in your life where you stood up for someone who couldn't stand up for themselves? Or a moment when someone stood up for you? Hollywood has many legends, but Eugene Allen Hackman was something different. He was the truth, in a city of lies. If you want to know the real stories, the ones they didn't put in the magazines, you're in the right place. We are peeling back the curtain on the legends. If this story moved you, hit that like button. It helps more people discover these untold stories. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Eugene Allen Hackman, The Untold Truth, and turn on notifications. We're just getting started. There are stories about Dustin, about Francis Ford Coppola, about the night Eugene walked away from Hollywood forever. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Leave a comment below. Have you ever walked away from something because it was the right thing to do? I'll see you in the next video. Stay real.